Hello and welcome to the 0-4.1 assignment. This assignment, hopefully you've already found, is in your assignments tab of your personal OneNote section. This particular lesson is on comparing and ordering rational numbers. Now, this should be very, very familiar to you because we actually, in the 0-2 assignment, we spent some time where we were ordering just real numbers. Now we're going to be looking more specifically at rational numbers, but it's going to be a very, very similar process. So as a reminder to you, we're just going to take a look at this chart here. Rational numbers include all of these things. They include integers, they include whole numbers, and they include natural or counting numbers. So with your numbers that are natural or counting, these are like 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on, getting larger. Now you go to the next group here with the whole numbers. These also include your natural or counting numbers, so they have the 1, 2, 3, and further, but they also include the number 0. So whole numbers are the counting numbers and 0. And then we move to the next ring, which is our integers, which we worked with yesterday, the integers. So we actually practiced adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing integers. So we got some calculator practice in there. But this is going to include both your whole numbers and your natural numbers, but then it's also going to include negative numbers. So they describe it as all whole and numbers and their opposites. So yesterday we actually talked about what it means to be opposites. Opposites are going to have the same absolute value even when they have differing signs. So like if you looked at -5, the opposite of that would be 5 because they are both 5 units away from 0. They cancel each other out. So these integers are going to include your negative numbers. Now for the rational numbers include the integers, the whole numbers, and the natural numbers, but they're also going to include any number that can be written as a fraction. So 2.7, it's a decimal, but if you wanted to turn that into a fraction, you could. So I type it in 2.7, I hit math, frac, enter. So we could see that as 27 over 10. Same idea, like if you wanted to turn this 7.0145, 7.0145, math, enter. It's this 14,029 over 2,000. Now, another way to think about these things, I was able to turn them into fractions because that's how they're defining the rational numbers. But if you have any decimals that terminate or end, that's going to be considered a rational number. So we've got 3/8, obviously that's a fraction, so that makes it rational. And then you have to understand that we are including integers, but we're also going to be including any negative number that can be written as a fraction. So that's kind of the breakdown of your rational numbers. So now I'm going to zoom out here, and it says when comparing rational numbers, it is often easiest to, and what we're going to be doing is we're going to be comparing decimals. Compare decimals. Okay, so we've done this before. So coming down here, it says compare rational numbers. So we're going to replace the black circle with a greater than, less than, or equal sign to make this 2/3 compared to 5/6, the true sentence. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to turn fractions into decimals. So just like we've done previously, we're going to turn fractions into decimals. And in order to do that, we're going to use a calculator. Use calculator. So that's kind of our step for this. So I'm going to take a look at 2/3, and I'm going to look at 5/6. And I'm going to write these as decimals. Now, in order to do that, I'm just using my calculator. So I open it up, and I've got 2 divided by 3, enter. This is going to come out as 0.6 repeated. So I'm going to do 0.6 repeated. So the line goes over the 6 because it's really like 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6, 6. Okay, for 5/6, So I'm going to do 5 divided by 6, just like what I'm seeing here. This one's 0.83 repeated. So I've got 0.8, and only the 3 is repeating, so I only want the bar over the 3. Now, when I look at this, the next thing I want to do is I want to kind of compare. So I'm looking at the 0 and the 0. Those are the same. Then I move over to our next place value, which is the 10th place, and I'm comparing an 8 and a 6. So when I look at this, I am saying that this is the greater number because an 8 is bigger than a 6. So this is greater, and I'm just going to box that one in there. So when I look at these two things and I compare them, 2/3 versus 5/6, I want to say that the 5/6 is bigger. So I hope you remember this. You would have done it a long time working with inequalities, is that you can kind of look at it and it looks like an alligator's mouth. The alligator always eats the greater. So just to kind of give you an idea, I'm going to draw this in there. So here's my alligator mouth. I'm drawing in the teeth. You don't have to do this necessarily. But then it would have like eyes here. Okay, so do you kind of see this alligator eating the greater? We always want the mouth, the big open side, facing the bigger number. So that's that first one. So again, all we did for this, we looked at each fraction, we turned them into a decimal using our calculator, and then compared place values. So looking at the next one, we've got the fractions 4/5, and we have the fraction 5/8. So looking at this same process, I'm going to go to my calculator, pull it up, make it a little bit bigger. We want 4 divided by 5. This one comes out to be 0.8. 0.8. And there's no repeating or anything. And then the next one is 5 divided by 8, which is 0.625. 0.625. So we compare the zeros. Okay, those are the same. Then we move over to the 10th place, 8 and 6. Those are not the same. So we want to think, okay, which one's greater? Boom, 8 is greater than 6. So I am highlighting that. I'm writing that it's greater. And then I just need to make the statement true. So 4/5 and 5/8 are what we're comparing. And we just said that the 4/5 is what's greater. So we're making our mouth eat the larger of the two fractions. All right, your job is to use the same process to complete 1 through 6. Now, as I look through, I'm noticing that number 4 is a little bit weird, so I'm actually going to do number 4 with you. So with this, you've got your 1.2, which is already in a form that we feel good about. It's already a decimal. This 1 2/9, we've had things like this that we've seen in the past, but I want to remind you that this is how you're going to have to do it. So when you go to change this into a decimal, you have to do 1, the whole number, and then add the 2/9 and put the 2/9 in parentheses because that keeps it together as a whole fraction. So again, it's 1 and 2/9. That's why the and is representing that plus sign. So we add the two pieces together, the 1 and the 2/9, and we get 1.2 repeated. 1.2 repeat. Okay, so just to kind of give you an idea, usually we compare, so we look at the first place value, so the whole number here, we have 1 and 1. Those are the same. And then we look, oops, didn't mean to do that yellow, let me go back. We look and we compare the 2 and the 2. Now, some of you might look at this and be like, oh, well, obviously they're equal because you have 1.2 and 1.2. But you have to remember that this is 1.2 repeated. So really you've got 2, 2, 2, 2, and so on. Now, to compare, because we had these in the 10th place, we had the same number. Now we have to move on to the next place value. So there's no number currently right here, but we can put in a 0 to hold the place value. That way, when we go to compare, we're comparing this 0 to this 2. Now, obviously, when you look at this, 2 is greater than 0. So I'm just going to box this side in to say that this is greater. And I switched to a black pen. Don't know why I did that. We'll go back to blue. With this, we want to have our mouth, like the alligator eats the grater, so it's eating that 1 2/9 because of the 2 repeating versus just having the 0 here. So be careful with problems like that, where you may have to hold place values with zeros, or you may have to extend out your numbers to kind of compare a little bit more easily. So again, your job is to complete 1, 2, 3, 5, and 6. These problems are going to be completed just like what we did in example 1. In the next video, I'll show you how to do example 2.